Today I want to talk about Bitcoin, why I think it has failed, and why I also think that it's still a tremendous revolution and one of the most important technologies of our time. So, most people associate Bitcoin with getting rich quick, Lambos, other cryptocurrencies, scams, moon talk and whatnot. But there's actually a real, very serious case behind Bitcoin that is, in my opinion, stronger than ever. And yet, Bitcoin has failed in its initial vision. So, what do I mean with that? If you look at the white paper that was released in 2008 by Satoshi Nakamoto, we can see in the headline that it was conceived as a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. So, it means we don't have any intermediaries, no trusted third party in the middle, it's just person to person, like cash. I give you the cash and that's it. Just online, just electronically. And it was clearly envisioned to be used for everyday payments, just any goods, services, your daily coffee. But as of now, it's not really used as such. So nobody really accepts it. While we do have some merchants that actually do accept this, like Travala or Expedia, or even some Starbucks stores we can pay with Bitcoin, or at least buy gift cards with Bitcoin, the majority of the merchants just doesn't want to bother with it. There is some that actually did accept it in the past, like Tesla or the Microsoft store, and don't accept it as of now. And there are also some workarounds, like Shop in Bit, for example, where you can buy virtually anything paying in Bitcoin. But ironically, they're basically just reintroducing another third party in the middle. So you pay Shop in Bit in Bitcoin, and then they buy whatever you want to have in dollars or euros. And that's not really how cash works. And I think we also need to consider a very important technical reason for why Bitcoin actually can't be cash. First of all, we have one block every 10 minutes approximately, meaning that if you want to be sure that you actually receive the payments, you need to wait a couple of blocks, let's say 5 blocks, and with that, a payment takes around an hour to go through, which might be acceptable if you buy a house or a car, but not acceptable if you want to buy a coffee, or if you just go to an electronics store, maybe get a new laptop. And also we have the big issue that through the design of Bitcoin, we only get around 10 transactions per second, which is by far not sufficient to handle the transaction volume of Amazon or eBay. And if you compare it to Visa or MasterCard, they have like 60, 70,000 transactions per second. And there are technical solutions to that. So the Lightning Network, I think it's the most famous in Bitcoin, second layer technology that allows you to actually use Bitcoin very cheaply and make transactions very fast. But it first of all reintroduces technical overhead, so it's not as easy to use as cash. And second, it often reintroduces intermediaries and counterparty risk, which Bitcoin kind of tried to avoid. And it's also kind of not native Bitcoin. It's a second layer technology. It's built upon the initial network. But I think there's also, in addition to the technical reasons, like a cultural reason, and that is the hodl mentality of the Bitcoiners. So most Bitcoiners don't really want to spend their Bitcoin. They want to hodl, they want to hold it. And in my opinion, money is arguably there to be used. But if Bitcoin has failed as electronic cash, why is it still relevant? Why is it still an important technology? I think the case for having a neutral, unseizable, and global store of value is extremely strong. Bitcoin basically allows you to transfer value across time and space. And what do you mean with that? So regarding time, Bitcoin has a fixed supply of 21 million that can't be changed, and that allows you to be sure that your stack can't be inflated away. So if you hold, let's say, one Bitcoin, you know that you have 1/21 millionth of the whole network, and that will never change. If you hold, $1 million in $1 million US, you can't really be sure that the US doesn't decide to just print more money next year, and then your relative share will shrink. And when it comes to space, there it gets really interesting. We're living in a globalized world, and Bitcoin is a global asset. It's a digital asset. It allows you to access your money anywhere in the world with minimal requirements. So maybe you won't be able to, fly to Namibia and immediately buy a car there or get a hotel there if you need to flee to Namibia for any reason. But I'm quite sure you will find someone that will take your Bitcoin and give you local currency for it anywhere in the world. And that's very, very strong, because you don't need anyone's permission to transfer your Bitcoin. In the worst case, or in the simplest case, you just need 12 words in your head and you can restore your access anywhere in the matters of seconds. And in addition to that, it's unseizable. So even if someone knows that's you that owns the Bitcoin, no one can really stop you from using them, from transacting in Bitcoin. No government, no bank, just no one. And that might seem not really relevant if you're a normal person, but I think we have a couple of examples in last years that show that things can change very quickly. So we had the trucker protests in Canada during COVID, where a massive number of bank accounts just get frozen. And also Julian Assange, the whistleblower, or the guy that provided a platform for whistleblowers, could only do his work, reveal war atrocities of the US government, because he received funds in Bitcoin. He could not receive any donations in virtually any other currency. But also on the geopolitical stage, Bitcoin has become quite relevant, because we've seen after Russia invaded Ukraine that all the Western countries froze the Russian assets. And now Iran even accepts Bitcoin as payments for the tolls for the Strait of Hormuz. However, there are also dangers when it comes to Bitcoin. So in my opinion, one of the most severe dangers is the combination of the KYC, the Know Your Customer procedures, with the transparent blockchain. So if you register at an exchange, you have to provide your ID, a proof of address, sometimes proof of funds, and nowadays actually you even need to sign a message with your receiving address if you want to withdraw the Bitcoin from your exchange. And these KYC procedures are just everywhere. You're just fully transparent, and if they know, for example, that this is your address because you just bought on a normal exchange, and let's go back to the case we flee to Namibia, and then you find a local exchange there, and they know that's the address of a local exchange, and then they can track you back to that place. They still can't stop you from using it, but you're just basically transparent. There are ways to kind of get around that. You can use a mixer, you can obscure your transaction history and stuff like that, but it is still traceable, and it's also something that is a very big difference to cash, because with cash you don't really have history. Like if I give you the cash and you use the cash to buy coffee, no one really knows that I had the cash before. With Bitcoin, everything is there, everything is on the blockchain, everything will be there forever. Another big issue is that a lot of people don't really own their Bitcoin. So in recent years, we saw the emergence of ETFs, treasury companies, or people just leaving their Bitcoin exchanges. I think it's been always like this. We've seen some exchanges collapse in recent decades by now, but people still don't really realize that you only hold an obligation against a questionable third party when you leave your Bitcoin exchanges. Kind of same thing if you only buy the ETF. So you might participate in the value development. You might have this value transfer over time. But when it gets real, like when there is some turmoil, when there is maybe a war or some other thing that requires you to actually withdraw your Bitcoin because you need to use it, then you can expect that a lot of exchanges will go down, will stop withdrawals. Happened so many times already, just when there were like market turmoils, like periods of high volatility, that they just stopped allowing people from withdrawing their funds. And I think that's actually quite bad because people forsake the tremendous benefit that Bitcoin gives them for a little bit of comfort. So you don't have to set up a wallet, which is very easy. Just download an app, write down your words, and you're done, basically. Maybe if you have a certain amount, get a hardware wallet, costs like $50 to $100, and you're good. It's not that hard, but people still don't do it. And since we have all these ETF, all these Bitcoin exchanges, all these treasury companies, it introduces the risk of paper Bitcoin, which I think I'm going to make a separate video on it because I think it's a fascinating topic. But if we're talking about paper gold, we can already see that there's like 20 or 200 times the amount of paper gold traded than the amount of real physical gold in existence, and that's just insane. And with Bitcoin, we don't really know, we don't have any real numbers on it, but I expect that it's comparable or even worse. It would be very, very easy for the treasury companies, for the exchanges, for the ETFs to just provide on-chain proofs that they do actually hold the Bitcoin they claim to hold, but they don't. They rely on reports from accounting companies that never done anything wrong in their entire history. There was not a single financial scandal in the last 50 years or so where they missed something. So, in my opinion, very questionable whether you should trust them. I wouldn't. And it's very easy to just take control over your money, basically. So, what's the bottom line? First of all, Bitcoin is not digital cash. It failed as such. And I also think it will never be digital cash. Maybe there will be a solution built on top of that, like Lightning or another technical approach that will kind of be a nice workaround that will be solid. But it is not digital cash. However, it is basically digital monetary sovereignty. And that is just unprecedented in financial history, that if had anything like this, it gives you a tremendous amount of autonomy, and you just can't be stopped to transact worldwide. That is insane. That was never the case. It basically gives everyone in the world a digital aircraft carrier to transport their values, and it levels the playing field between institutions, banks, and individuals. Just make sure that you truly own your Bitcoin and not just an obligation against a non-trustworthy institution. And yeah, with that, thank you for watching. Let me know your thoughts about this in the comments. Let me know if you would be interested in the whole paper Bitcoin topic. And see you next time.